I have been notified that Robin Nelson is on her way. She's caught up by a train. Seth Holden is walking in the room right now. Otherwise, we have all board members here. So calling this meeting to order, is there a motion for approval of the agenda? Jim?
I move approval of the agenda with the addition of the HR addendum that is located at our work location.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, second by Dr. Newman. Thank you. We will move on to item 3, which is... I'm sorry. Is there a motion for all in favor signify by saying yes. Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes. Now we may move on to recognition of the audience. There are 6 individuals that have signed up to speak with us this evening. I don't know if anyone is in the boardroom right now that has signed up. Nicole Larson is the first person that signed up, and I would note that it is a requirement for anyone to be in the boardroom to wear a mask. Dr. Gross, thank you for notifying members of the public. Members of the public, as you enter the boardroom, you must wear a mask as protocol by Fargo Public Schools. If you don't have a mask with you, we do have some masks that are on the table on the side. Otherwise, we will have to ask you to please leave the room. So we give you an opportunity to get those masks on. And Nicole Larson is the first person that signed to speak. So again, if others of you don't have a mask, you will please have to leave the room. Nicole, if you want to stay at the podium and speak, you may. And excuse me, please respect our protocol within Fargo Public Schools. That is a requirement of all staff and all students and anyone entering our facilities to wear a mask. The requirement is that we wear masks.
But there's medical exemptions allowed. Our family has a medical exemption on file with Fargo Public Schools.
If there is a family that has that, that is a different story. I'm not aware of that situation with.
Well, if we're allowed in the school, we should be allowed in the meeting since it pertains to our family, correct?
I would like to refer to Dr. Gandhi for our protocol, please. Is that appropriate? Okay. So what we are going to do is trust you that that is the situation. And that if that is not your situation, to please leave the room and respect those guidelines. Thank you. Nicole, go ahead.
I'm expecting necessarily an answer from you. It's odd, but thank you for allowing me to speak.
You did, Rebecca, you didn't say the guidelines or give a timeline.
I'm sorry, Nicole.
It's okay.
Yes, thank you, Anne Marie, for reminding me. At this time, the board will hear comments from the public. We ask that each speaker who has signed up to address the board state their name and address for the record. Speakers must refrain from using this forum to criticize or complain about a specific employee or student by name. Vulgar or profane language will not be tolerated. The board is interested in your comments and will listen carefully, but is not obligated to respond or to debate issues in this forum. Should you desire a written response to a specific question, you may request it. This evening, each speaker will be allotted a maximum of 4 minutes. Upon conclusion of the allotted time, a chime will sound and the speaker is asked to conclude. If necessary, a final chime will sound 15 seconds later, signifying the end of the speaker's time at the podium. And now, Nicole, welcome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I don't usually like to do these kind of public things, but this just seemed kind of important. And I know it's not on your agenda tonight, but it's on mine and obviously others. And I'm sure you're all great people that want the best for our kids. But we need some action taken. You represent all of our children. You represent my children. I'm a mom of some of those children you represent in the school system. I've been a nurse since 1995. And we all know this has been a very challenging year for all of us. We're all in the same storm, but different boats affected differently. And as a nurse, I'm truly just wondered what happened to all the science that was going around in 2020. It's an upside down world for sure. I was always taught that masks don't work in the public. I get the hospital in different situations, but I'm here to talk about kids. And we see more and more studies coming out. I don't know what more we need to do. I don't know how we got to this crazy spot where all this pressure has been in the children. I see kids in preschool and out playing outside and they have masks on. I don't understand how we put all this pressure on them as adults. Like, I've seen some of our family and friends that have been scared that they're gonna kill somebody. Over and over quarantines, things like that, and we know the order is coming to an end on April 30th. And I wanted to know whose authority will this be under? Do you guys have authority to keep my kid home or contact trace, or is this a medical device, or is this a piece of paper? Does it have to be a certain grade to be safe? I just have seen so much sadness because of this, and I know the order comes to an end on April 30th, and I want to know, I've had numerous emails back and forth between Cass Public Health and some board members. And Cass Public Health says, school board's deciding what's going on, and school board says, Cass Public Health is telling us what we're supposed to do, so I'm kind of wondering who's deciding what. Thankfully, my kids will be done with Fargo Public Schools in 2 years, and we've had awesome school teachers, just amazing teachers, not one issue with that. I used to say that, I don't know if it's important to always vote on certain things, but it's kind of shown that you guys have a very important role. I didn't realize it really until this year. I think it's kind of sad that as adults we say all the time, kids are resilient. We have this Swiss cheese thing here that might work, and then we put all this pressure on the children. And it just breaks my heart. I would like my children unmasked at school. The people that want to wear their masks, they can wear their masks. So if they work, then just let them wear their masks and we can move on. And I'm sure it's been a really hard year of a lot of hard decisions you probably didn't think you'd have to make this year. But this has been, it's like the ball's been dropped. The kids have paid such a high price. I've seen kids miss so many things because of this. And I know adults have too, we all have. But the kids, what are they supposed to do? They're resilient, they'll be fine? We don't know that. We don't know the effects of all this on them. I don't know. So I kind of want to know who's responsible when this ND Smart Restart is done, who's going to be making these decisions. I know you guys are elected. Is our superintendent elected? Is Cass Public Health elected? Who decides that? And from what I've heard, and I could be wrong, that you guys could get rid of all the COVID restrictions that you wanted. You represent the children, not the teachers. I'm sure you do represent the teachers some, but the children are our highest and most valued thing at our schools. And I know you know that. You wouldn't be here if you didn't know that. And I know you all care about all the kids, or you wouldn't be here. But
Thank you, Nicole, for your time.
Thank you.
Cassandra Schmidt.
Good afternoon. My name's Cassandra Schmidt. I'm here tonight on behalf of hundreds of parents in our Facebook group, Let Parents Decide That. There were some really wonderful questions asked by the last speaker in regards to who is making these decisions, and that has been something, quite frankly, that's been really hard for parents to find out. That's something that myself and a group of others have been working really hard to figure out who is exactly behind the requirements for the close contact quarantines. Because as far as we can figure, that is the reason for the masks. Every time we ask, They say, we are keeping these masks on our kids so that we can keep these kids in schools. So we're trying to figure out where these requirements come from. And what we have figured out is there is no lawful order in the state of North Dakota, and I'm not sure if everyone here knows this or not. I brought documentation. There is no lawful order in the state of North Dakota currently that requires quarantine for close contact cases. Here's the order from September 23rd, 2020. Here's the revocation of that order 3 days later. So since September 26th, there has been no lawful order in place, meaning that any order for quarantine of close contacts in the school systems, respectfully, sir, is coming from you, Dr. Gandhi. And, you know, I apologize because this is a situation that's we have to ask ourselves, what are these masks being used for? And I challenge each of you to ask yourself very commonsensically, what are we using these masks for? Because if we're using the masks to prevent or to mitigate an illness, then we are using them as a medical device. If we're not using them for medical reasons, then they're just for show. But if we're using them for medical reasons, they come with a medical choice. And who makes medical choices for children? Did we elect you all to make medical choices for our children? Medical choices belong in the hands of parents. We are the only ones that can assess the individual child's needs. You all can assess your individual needs and take the preventative measures that you feel comfortable with. And what we're asking for is for you to allow the parents to do the same. We are asking for you all to give our rights back as parents. As I said, I'm here tonight representing hundreds of parents in our group that could not be here today. So please keep that in mind. Please make the mask requirements recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra. The next person signed up to speak is Alyssa. And I don't know how to pronounce your name appropriately, so if you would clarify that.
Alyssa Machenbacher,
Thank you.
18, do you want my address too? Or is that
Yes, please.
1810 12th Avenue South, Fargo? I am a mom of 2 kids in the Fargo School District, and I'm here to ask you to end the mask requirement sooner than later. They are not good for children. Kids should not be forced to sit in a gross, sometimes soggy, germy mask all day long, breathing their own recycled air while trying to learn and interact with peers and teachers. I realize you can't vote on anything today, and I also realize most of you are thinking the school year's almost over, so why change things now? To some, it's just a mask and it's a sign of virtue, but to some, it's dehumanizing and unnecessary. We know kids are not super spreaders of the virus. We also know COVID barely has an effect on kids. This was never their burden to bear. Our county is in the green. Cases are extremely low in schools, even though the kids most definitely aren't wearing them correctly. Please make decisions in the best interests of the kids instead of just saying you're going by Fargo Cass public health guidelines. We did not elect them to make choices for our kids. May is a gorgeous month in North Dakota, and there are many fun events and activities such as graduation and end-of-year celebrations. After all we've asked these kids to put up with over the past 14 months, can we please let them breathe fresh air and let their smiles show if they choose? Thank you.
Thank you. The next person to speak is Rita. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for your time and thank you for all you do for our children and all you invest. I want to share with you how this mask impact is particularly impacting one child because I think it's impacting many. I've had hours of conversations from the assistant superintendent to numerous teachers to the principal of the school because my child came with a mask exemption. And it was systematically, the class was told, stay 6 feet away from this child at all times. They are reminded in the hall. The other children are reminded during the school day. It is the equivalent to someone crying out leper when he walks in the room. And I would like you to know, I've been working on a 504 process because the federal requirement is that my child with a disability have an equitable education. Would you all agree? It is not equitable. It is not equitable when a child cannot participate in games at recess and is given a jump rope in the corner. It is not equitable when they can't play with their friends outside. And it is not equitable when a music group gathers and they are told to sit in the corner and watch or sent to the hallway with a ukulele. It's not equitable when a teacher can't come within 6 feet to teach them how to do a math problem. It is ostracism. And I've spoken to one of the presidents of a state psychological school psychologist board, and she said, your child is being damaged. I do not know if it is safe for you to keep your child in Fargo Public Schools any longer under these circumstances. It is not good for his health. And we have talked about this numerous times, and the policies that have been put in place are unmanageable, perhaps because they're not all logical. So some of them are compromised. In his classroom that I've not been able to visit, I've been told the desks touch. Why? Because of the school's need. When they sit touching, all the air, I don't know if you've seen the videos of the way the moisture comes out of the side of the masks, is coming out and touching other students. But do you know where my child sits? In a corner, far away. He doesn't interact with other students at lunchtime. He sits alone. And so inequitably, some of these policies are ignored, some are applied. That one was ignored because of convenience in the space of the school. But when I ask that my child is treated, well, like a non-dangerous individual and given an equitable education, I'm not giving a hearing. Last week, I spoke to the principal and I said, let's do the 504. She said, I don't know what disability we're not accommodating. I said, that's because it's a new world and you created the disability. He would be fine if he could be treated like a normal human being without a mask, but instead he's ostracized because of the policies and the fear. She said, well, maybe he needs psychological counseling. And I said, could we pause, please? You just told me that Fargo Public Schools will damage my child psychologically during the day and send him to counseling afterwards. And she said these words to me, no child's need will trump the mandate. And yet it has. So I want to take you, that's his education. Do you think he's learning? Do any of you think he's learning? I don't. I have a crying child at home many days. I want to tell you what Jane Elliott said about this. She did the 1968 blue-eyed, brown-eyed experiment. I hope some of you are familiar with it. Martin Luther King died, and she came in and said, blue-eyed kids are inferior. Brown-eyed kids are superior in this classroom today. And this is her quote, 15 minutes later, vicious, ugly, nasty, discriminating, domineering people appeared in my third grade children. And the other group was timid, frightened, angry, and unable to learn in the space that was created. Maskisms are just another ism that's being systematically created in Fargo Public Schools. My child comes home crying many days and says he's called disease boy. Unmasker, what's wrong with you? Get away from us. You don't have a voice here. And it is systematically supported by how the teachers treat him and how much this is reinforced and told to the students in the classroom. There's 0.07% of kids infected right now. What are the chances that he's one of them and he's there in those few hours, perhaps pre-symptomatically? I asked the school to run the numbers. If you layer the odds in the school and you layer how fast kids transmit it and you layer the tiny window, what would the numbers be? No one would run it. I'm begging you to take a look at how your policies are affecting students on a real basis. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Angela Wetch.
Say, I'm just a parent. I have 8 kids total, but 3 of my kids are school age. 2 of them should be in school, in elementary school, but at the beginning of the year, I decided that my 6- and 7-year-old would not be in school wearing a mask all day. That was my choice as a parent. I took my kids out and I'm homeschooling them. And I have one daughter in middle school that's with me tonight, and she wanted to be with her friends. And I get that as a mom. You know, I know that she wants to be social, but she goes to school and she has to wear a mask all day long. And she just came home today and she told me, she said, Mom, you don't know how many times I hear from the teachers, get that mask up over your nose, get that mask up over your nose. For kids who are maybe struggling, having a hard time breathing, and maybe just need a break from it. You know, we get to go out and have our lunch breaks. Maybe we get to step outside. We don't have somebody on top of us telling us to wear a mask or wear it correctly. But come on, these are just kids. And like the one lady was saying how resilient kids are. Yes, they're resilient, but how far do we go, you guys? I mean, I've been a foster parent for 16 years. There's a lot of kids that experience trauma, and then we're putting these tight masks on their face, expecting them to put it over their nose. No, come on, we are more educated than that. Are we not thinking about our kids? For real, think about your kids. Because that's why I'm here tonight. I don't like doing this stuff either. I get very nervous. But you know what? When my daughter's coming home and I look at her and I say, honey, do you want to wear a mask at school? She says, no. I said, would you like for me to be able to have the choice to say whether or not you can wear a mask? And she says, Mom, yes. But I don't get that choice. You guys do, or maybe you do. Somebody does, but it's not me. And isn't that who it should be? I mean, come on. I kept 2 of my kids out of school. I homeschooled them. And I will continue to do so until I have faith in the school board and the school system that they're going to be making the right choices for my kids. Because a 6 and a 7-year-old shouldn't have to be wearing a mask all day. Nobody should have to be wearing a mask if they don't want to. It's a parent's choice. Now, if a parent wants their kid to wear a mask, I have no say-so over that. I shouldn't be making decisions for their kids, just like you shouldn't be making the decision for mine. Come on, that's all we're asking. We're not asking to take it away from the parents that want it for their child. We're not. That's not why we're here. Just let us decide if we want our kids to wear it. Whether or not, it should be our choice. And there's a lot of other factors other than just COVID. There's trauma that kids have been through. This can be really hard and damaging, more damaging. You just heard the last lady. That's heartbreaking. Isn't that? Now imagine if that was your kid, shoved in a corner all day long, kids making fun of them. I don't know about you, but that's not even my kid and I want to cry. That's horrible. They don't have a risk. The risk is lessening. We gotta show the kids that, yes, when we feel like there's a need, we need to protect our kids. But when that risk starts to go down, we realize we're more educated, we have more information, we can lessen that. We can show kids how it properly works, not to keep doing something that's not necessary. That's all I ask. So my kids can get back into school. That's all I ask.
Thank you. Jesse Van Dyke.
Thank you. I'm at 410 14th Avenue South. I have 2 children in elementary school, a 6 and an 8-year-old, and at the beginning of the year, we learned that they were going to be requiring masks at school at all times, and so we decided to put them in virtual academy. And I worked at home and did virtual academy with them until January, when it just became too much of a burden. And they said, we'll wear the masks and we'll go to school. We just want to be with our friends. And I was ready to go back to the office. So since then, they've both complained about headaches and fatigue, which they've never experienced in their lives. They also mentioned that if they put their mask down at all to breathe or itch their face, they are told immediately, wear your mask appropriately. They've been told that halfway through next year, they can probably do away with the mask mandate. But my question is, why have they been told halfway through next year that they can go without a mask? Bismarck has ended their mask mandate for schools starting next Tuesday. So I don't see why Fargo Public Schools can't make the same considerations. Teachers who want to be vaccinated have been vaccinated. They've had their 2 to 3 weeks to let it kick in. So if they were afraid for their health, they should now be protected with their vaccine, and kids not being spreaders of coronavirus. So we appreciate all your considerations and hope that this will come to an end hopefully before the school year is over. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes the individuals that have signed up to share comments with us this evening. Thanks for being here. Thank you, guys. We're moving on to the fourth item. David?
I hate to bring this up at this point because it almost makes it look like grandstanding, but I have a motion to make. Beginning May 3rd, 2021, masks will not...
I think that would be out of order, but I would ask Anne Marie as our parliamentarian, because we're not on to our business section of the agenda. Anne Marie?
Typically, you don't make motions outside of your business section.
Very well, I'll wait.
Okay, now on to item,
Hey, I got a question here. I know I'm not on the list.
right, it's a requirement to sign up.
Hey, listen.
Prior to
I
speaking,
gotta ask
sir,
you guys,
please.
Is this school board getting backside money to promote these
Sir,
masks?
could you please?
I got a question. I'm a taxpayer. Are you people getting bought off to put these masks on these kids? You gotta be getting paid. I mean, that's the only goddamn reason that everybody's sitting around here with a mask on. Now, these people right here don't have no mask on. What's going on? If we're standing out there, it's safe, but when we're in here, it's not safe? Don't get rough with me, pal.
We'll have someone
Is there some backside
remove you
money
from the
coming
room,
from-
please. Yes, we're going to take a 5-minute
Wait.
recess right now. Thank you.
Do not push me.
Is there some money that you people are getting?
Agenda. The first report is one on community outreach and communications monitoring. It is an annual report that we receive, and memo 116 is what we are to refer to, and I will turn this over to Anne Marie Campbell. Welcome, Anne Marie.
Thank you. I do have the entire communications team with me here tonight to present to you. This is an annual report. However, we have not had the opportunity to address you since 2019, as last year about this time, obviously COVID had hit and we had canceled a couple board meetings, and one of those was the time the communications team was going to come present to you. So we are here for the first time since 2019. And just as a reminder, communications is included in the strategic plan under RSI 5. So that's what brings us here to you tonight. Since 2019, when the last time we were in front of you, we've had a 50% changeover in our team. So I've been with you for 10 years. Betsy's been here for 20 years. And then we have 2 new team members. Last spring, Kirby Ingen, who had been with us for a long time, he retired. He was in web services. And then Madeline McLaughlin, who was with us as a communications assistant, she moved to Duluth with her husband. So we had the opportunity to bring on 2 new team members. And when we have that opportunity to have new people join us, we take time to look at positions, review them, see what's still needed. And when we posted for a communication specialist and a graphic and web designer. As we reviewed those positions, we really looked across the district and wanted to bring in Trollope Performing Arts School into those positions as well. So Amy Norstead joined us as a communication specialist, and she does work for Trollope as well. And then Tyler Brown has joined us as the graphic and web designer. So they are here tonight as well. So we have submitted to you the Memo 116, a written report in advance of the meeting with a lot of information and data for you. But tonight we're just going to go over a few of our initiatives that we've been working on this year. Nothing we're going to chat about tonight to you is COVID related, but we're going to chat about the different things we've been doing. We're going to overview some message interpretation and translation we've been working on, video production, some training we're working on with administrators, and some of the graphic design things that we've been working on. So specifically about message interpretation and translation, this fall, or last fall, at the beginning of the school year, the communications team, the information technology, and the English learner department got together to establish some systems to be able to get in touch with our EL families when we were putting out those very large messages to families when we had large-scale changes due to COVID-19. For example, when we had a change to our instructional plan level. So we put systems in place so that once those larger messages were put together, within 24 to 40 hours, we would pare down that message. We would have native speakers interpret it in a native language, and then we would push those out to our families via phone message. Sometimes it would take a little bit longer depending on availability to translators and interpreters, but now we do pretty much have it down to a 24-hour time span when we can turn those around. And we get those out to the top 11 languages here in the district. Additionally, we've been doing that for some of our buildings as well, for like parent-teacher conferences or when larger things come up for buildings that they want to get out to their parents. The EL department works with buildings for that. Additionally, we're starting to work on translating some of our policies. The one that we've done first here this year is our Title IX policy. That's a very long policy. So that has been abbreviated and then translated into our top 9 languages, and those are available on our Title IX policy page. Additionally, we took our top languages and translated some of our school closure messages and got those together and ready for in case we have inclement weather and need to cancel school. And we've had graphics made for that purpose, so we can post those on social media and use those as well. Thankfully, we've only had 1 inclement weather day this year, so we haven't had much use for them this school year, but you know, that can change quite quickly as well. And I would be remiss to say that this initiative has not been fully charged by a communications team. It has been a team effort with the EL department, and so they really need the kudos for that as well. We also want to share about our launch into video productions as our communications team. Really, this started last year, or in 2019, when Dr. Gandhi started the FPS Learns video series. And then this last fall, when Amy joined the team, really kicked up our video production. And we're doing a lot of video thanks to Amy's skills. And so Amy's going to share a little bit about some of the things that she's done video-wise.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Good evening, board members. I am very excited to be able to help Fargo Public Schools get into the video world. And so, as Anne-Marie said, we launched our video services in fall of 2020. And through that, our main goal is to highlight the positives that are happening throughout the district. And as you all know, there are truly lots of positives, and it's hard to show everything that's wonderful in our schools. So this is just a way to broadcast just a snippet of the amazing things that are happening. So that includes a lot of events that are happening in our schools, highlighting the wonderful things that our students, teachers, admin, staff members are doing, and really overall showcasing how Fargo Public Schools is fulfilling our mission of educating and empowering students to succeed. And there are some alternative goals with that. As Anne-Marie mentioned, I service Trollwood Performing Arts School with a lot of their marketing and PR efforts, and that includes a lot of recruitment as they need to get a lot of students to join their program. So I have focused a lot of video on that. Also, we have other services that we provide for visual needs, such as the Save the Schools address this year was done virtually, and that was all done with video editing and gathering that way. And as of today, I'm excited to announce we have completed 70 videos since the beginning of the school year, so I find that as just a way to show that this is something that Fargo Public Schools and a lot of the teachers and schools and administrators have seen as a need, and we are excited to be able to fulfill that need. Thank you.
One new thing that we've just launched here this late winter is some training opportunities for administrators, and we've also offered that out to board members as well, and that is interviewing and media training. We've put together 4 different options that we are willing to work with people on, message development and interview training. Amy and I have just started doing some of those, so a couple of people have volunteered and said, yes, me, I will do that, and some we have yet to schedule. We actually have a training that we're doing tomorrow morning. We also have a group of principals that want to do it this summer when things are a little less hectic when the school year's going. So we are offering that. There's also talks administratively, we're thinking about adding that into the mentor program for new administrators as well, working on some tips and tricks for interviewing, and then we do full mock interviews. Amy operates as an interviewer, the reporter coming and interviewing, and we do a real scenario, and then we do a debrief at the end. So just launching into that, but it's been fun and exciting so far. Amy, do you have anything to share or add?
You did a wonderful job.
Thank you. Want to touch on some graphic design things as well. With the addition of Tyler and his skill set as a graphic designer, we've been really upping our game in that area. Prior to having Tyler on board, anytime that Fargo Public Schools or Trollwood would need graphic design, we would contract for that service. So we were hiring somebody to help us in that area. So now that Tyler's with us, we've been able to do a lot more. This year in particular, we've had a great need for logo development. I don't know why it's this year, but we sure have had that need, and Tyler's been great to work through that with us. He has a system in place for working with groups to develop those logos, and he's going to share a little bit about that with you.
Yeah, so it's been a joy creating these things for Fargo Public Schools. I come from kind of the back room of graphic design and ad agencies, now for a greater power, the public school system. So I'm very happy to be here and showing you this stuff. But this is kind of a few things we've made this year from different people. So Virtual Academy came to me as a classroom teacher said they wanted to have a logo, and we took it from there. And there's little things that I kind of do for every project, and then there's a kind of a special way we can incorporate the person or the client who wanted it. So my creative process is generally a refinement process. So it could be anything under the sun, and we meet on that first meeting and kind of talk about what it should be, and we slowly narrow down what that final one is by looking and trying and testing and I go through an initial ideation phase where I'll draw maybe 50 tiny thumbnail sketches, and then I'll narrow that down to the top 6 or so and show them to the group from that, we can kind of see a theme or a direction that we want this to look like. And I'll refine from there, moving on to the computer and visually refining it. And then I add color and any specifics that are needed for that case are considered. So sometimes with logos, you need a one-color version that works because it's going to be mainly used on one-color printing, or it's going to be a shirt. But some interesting anecdotes from these. The Virtual Academy one was really fun because I got to interact with a classroom of students, and we did it as a group project. So it was kind of an extracurricular for those Virtual Academy students who didn't have art that semester, or I'm not sure how it works. But it was cool to see kids interested in art and then asking me questions and interacting. But then the task then at the end became, we want to incorporate everyone's logos that they made into the final one. So on the screen, silhouetted, are the 9 student participants. So that was kind of busy. But it was a great, memorable experience that I enjoyed. Spruins was fun. I think that was the first one I did, where North and South athletic teams wanted their, instead of just being named North-South, the teams came up with the name Spruins, and a general idea of what a Spruin was, and we kind of worked to see what is a Spruin. And this was a fun one where you combine the bear wearing the helmet. Here for the kids, it was fun meeting those ladies. They had more of a idea of what they wanted, but similar process, discussions with the client, sketches, idea, refinement, until we get to the final. The biggest one we worked on lately is Dakota High School. And that one involved the entire school, and I've never been involved in a logo design process where they put up the ideas on the board, and students and staff could walk by and sticker which ones they liked. That was amazing to see. Or usually it's just one business owner is getting this logo design, like, I like that one, done. There's a lot of considerations, and nice to see everyone included in that process of making it their own, deciding, like the mascot's already decided as a group when they come to me, rather than just an idea. In ad agency, sometimes they just have an idea and they don't even have the name. I tend to get the name and a mascot, and yeah, it's fun. I think that the bottom 2 are more of a word mark, so they're not specific logos. These are a little bit faster process. We come up with there are 2 Trollwood campaigns where we wanted for Giving Hearts Day to give from the heart, and it was more of a quicker, what can you get out? And the same with the Color Your Summer at Trollwood is their branding for the summer registration. Thank you.
And now, right now, Tyler is starting to work on a logo for the Explorer Academy, so that will be the next one up. So, like we said, we've had a lot of logo development this year. So that completes what we wanted to share with you in person. If we have any questions about what we've shared or the report, we'd be happy to take those questions.
Thank you. Communications team, anyone have questions or comments? Robin?
Are you having some requests for your media school? Getting some good, I don't know what to call it, I forgot.
Yeah, our media training, yep, we have. We've had a few sessions. We have one board member that's interested in it, so we have to get that scheduled, and we have some coming up as well. So it's a standing offer. It's not kind of a one and done, and some people want to move through all of them, all of the options that we laid out. So it's going to be a continual process.
Nice offering, thank you.
Anyone else? Dr. Gandhi?
I think at recent governance meetings, we've talked about, the board meeting agendas and the length and presentations as well. I would just direct all board members to the meeting materials for tonight's meeting, because I think our communications team, while they presented a lot of what they do, their packet is pretty extensive, and this team of 4 that you see in front of you As most of you know, Anne Marie herself wears 3 different hats in the school district, but her team of 4 is probably one of the most engaged teams that you'll see. I mean, even just earlier today, we've talked about the level of media interactions this year and requests that we've had compared to other years as well. So just want to give kudos to this team, and their work never stops. They are first to communicate with our community, first to communicate with the school board, and most importantly, first to communicate with our families as well. So just a lot of really good information there to take a look at as well.
Thank you so much. If we didn't realize the value of communication done strategically, turned on a dime before, I hope we realize it now. And as a person that has worn basically and worked in all of your shoes, former ad agency employee, team member, and then internal and external, doing that work like what you're doing, Tyler, bringing your work from ad agency internally. I really appreciate the work that all of you do and know that many times it is not valued to the fullest extent. So thank you extremely much.
It's a pleasure.
Moving on, I believe we are done. Moving on to the legislative update. Item B, Dr. Gandhi and Board Member Nelson. Dr. Gandhi.
Sure, I will defer to Board Member Nelson. I think since our last meeting, we're in a little bit of a just wait and see mode. I personally don't have many updates besides a couple of bills have been passed that the governor has already signed, but I think we are still watching 1388, which is a primary funding bill. And there's just some work happening in conference committees regarding that as well. So no other major updates for me.
And Robin, do you have anything to share at this time?
No, pretty similar. The main bill is 1388, and that's the funding bill. There were some talk of it was going down to a 0 and a 1 this weekend, but it seems like the 1 and 1 will survive. But they expect to sine die on Thursday, so we'll see how that goes, and I'll give a more in-depth report during our share-outs.
Sounds good, thank you. The next item is the report from the FEA. Jennifer Mastrud, the president, informed me that there would not be representation from the FEA at this meeting, also not at our next meeting. So we'll move on to item D, the superintendent's report. Dr. Gandhi.
Only thing that I'll like to celebrate today is we did recognize Brenda Fisher, who is our Human Resources Absence Manager, as our Support Staff of the Year for Fargo Public Schools. For those of you that know Brenda, she manages across all 23 buildings, making sure that, along with all of our other HR-related duties, but she is the primary go-to person to make sure that we are addressing all of our substitute needs. This year, more than ever, has highlighted the importance of Brenda and her work, and she does it every morning at 6 a.m., if not earlier, with the most positive attitude that we can. So we're extremely proud and happy to celebrate her. And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Gandhi. The consent agenda, is there a motion for approval? Robin.
I move approval of the consent agenda with the HR addendum.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda with the addition of the HR addendum. All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. On to item 6. Is there a need for action on item 6? I would entertain a motion. Jim?
I'd like to move that we go into executive session for the purpose of attorney consultation and negotiation strategies as permitted under North Dakota Century Code 44-04-19.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to move into executive session. All in favor signify by saying yes.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. I would ask that everyone, that unless you serve on the Board of Education or you're a member of Cabinet, to please exit the room while we are, excuse me, and our attorney that's here. Moving on to the business section of our agenda, item A is the 2022-23 calendar approval, memo 119. Dr. Gross, are you introducing? The memo says Dr. Gross, and I know that, Brian, you also served on that committee, so you can, feel free to tag team.
I would be very happy to share. So again, referring to memo 119, the calendar committee, which was comprised of 17 members, has concluded their work and have come with a draft calendar for your review. That calendar committee was made up of teachers, principals, parents, students, our FEA president, we had support staff, and a school board member who were all part of that committee. We met over the course of 6 different meetings, reviewing everything from state statute to the calendar survey results that we issued that survey this school year, and then also EL 14, which was one of the executive limitations that talk about the school calendar. During our 6th meeting, the calendar committee did come to consensus on the draft that's attached to this memo. We had created the ground rules for consensus at our very first meeting, and that was that 80% of the committee would agree that this draft should be moved forward to the board, and it was 80% of the members who were present at that time. Before we are sharing it with you tonight, we did email a copy to all of the PTA, PTO presidents, and then I conducted a Zoom meeting to answer any questions that any of those presidents might have about the calendar moving forward. So with that, I just wanted to share with you the calendar that is presented. As you look at it on the screen or in front of you, you will notice the color coding for that calendar. The green days that are shaded in on any of the days, those are the professional development days that are part of the contract that we have with our teaching staff. Any of the days that are not shaded, so they are white, are the non-contract days, so they are just days off. The 2 different shades of blue that probably appear better on the printed copy than on the screen are the student contact days. The 2 different colors just differentiate first semester and second semester. There are the salmon colored days. Those are the holidays that are required either through statute or our contract. And then the yellow days are the 2 storm days that are built into the calendar. So the calendar that is in front of you, again, was created by the calendar committee. They did come to consensus on it, and it does meet all the provisions of state statute and EL 14. And just wanted to present that to you, and I would answer any questions that you might have.
Brian?
President, I would like to move. Sorry, thought I pressed it. I'd like to move that the 2022-23 school calendar be approved as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. The second is by Robin, that the calendar be approved for the 2022-23 school year. Any discussion, any questions? No discussion, questions? All right. Anne Marie, please call the roll.
Paulson?
Yes.
Benson?
Yes.
Gullickson? Yes. Holden?
Yes.
Johnson?
Yes.
Brian Nelson?
Yes.
Robin Nelson?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
President Knudsen?
Yes, motion passes. That takes us to item item 8, board reports on our agenda. The
Madam
first,
President,
David,
may I make my motion now?
go ahead. Although I want to remind all of us that it's not typically protocol for us to entertain new business that has not been publicly noted prior to board meetings, specifically unless it's something that is, I would say, considered an emergency item, as we know that items typically come to governance for discussion, which I have informed a variety of individuals earlier today in email correspondence. So I would like to plant that and just remind us all of our common protocol. But David, since you asked if you could make a motion, you may, and then we will see where it goes.
My motion states that beginning May 3rd, 2021, masks will not be required on elementary playgrounds or during outside physical education activities at middle or high school level.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, I'm going to read this. The motion, and then I'll pass it to Anne Marie. The motion is beginning May 3rd, 2021, masks will not be required on elementary playgrounds or during outside physical education activities at the middle or high school level. And that was made by David, seconded by Jennifer. I'll give it to you, Anne Marie. Anne Marie, do you have that wording down? Do you feel?
Per what you gave me?
Yes.
Sure. Yes.
Okay. All right, so since there was a motion and a second, I would offer up discussion. David?
I guess I'd first like to give rationale. I understand that it would have been proper to bring this to governance. If I would have done that, it would not have been acted on until probably our June meeting, at which time school would be out, and I just think it's time to take action on this. It is already occurring. There are elementaries that are allowing the kids to take off their masks during recess time and during their time after lunch, as long as they're socially distancing. It's been a constant puzzle to me all year. We allowed our athletics to occur all year with very, very close contact in things such as wrestling, which were shown to have brought cases into the schools. Nothing was ever done about that. And it's time. It's time that we begin taking these things off, and I think elementary recesses, and now with FIADs moving outside for softball and soccer and things like that, take off the masks.
Brian?
How does this fit with our restart plan, smart restart plan, and that process that we started at the beginning of the year? And then also the CDC stuff.
I would look to Dr. Gandhi to answer that. I would say that right now, I would be hesitant to move forward with this, considering at least the information that I have in terms of guidance from our local health community. But Dr. Gandhi, please feel free to chime in.
Sure, and I'll let Missy chime in if there's additional information I'm missing as well, too. Ultimately, the conversation for us when we had required masks at recess was tied to the quarantine requirements as well. So I think it's important to know that the mask requirements go hand in hand with the quarantine requirements, because of the mask-to-mask contact. When that's in place, prevents a lot of students from having to be quarantined or isolated, because we don't have to quarantine students that are mask-to-mask contact. So I believe that practice came from when we had multiple groups of students at recess out at the same time, not being able to guarantee that they're 6 feet apart, not wanting, if one of those students is a close contact, not wanting to have to quarantine that entire class. So I believe that is where that's coming from, because I think we're all on the same page. Ultimately, we'd love to be done with masks. We don't want to remove more kids away from school if we don't want to. So, the motion is not requiring masks. My question to the board would be, administration will follow whatever the direction is that the board's giving us, but then are we also in a recess situation if we have students that have been tested positive or are identified as close contact, but the recess supervisor or the teacher is unable to say who is close within that? Are we then going to take the risk of quarantining that own class? Or is the board going to tell us, is the intent that we don't follow contact tracing at that point?
So Jennifer, I know you have your hand up. Missy, I was Wondering if you had any information to add, and then Jennifer.
No, I agree with Rupak. It's that quarantining piece that goes with that, and we are the ones that do the tracking of close contact in the schools to manage, so that also makes it manageable when it's mask to mask, then that they would not all be quarantined.
Jennifer.
Okay, so this actually goes back to one of the questions that one of the parents brought up. Can we point to a lawful order within the state of North Dakota that requires quarantines for close contacts? And I do believe she's correct in saying that we can't. And additionally, Bismarck just ended their school mask mandate, as well as contact tracing on and their start date for that is May 4th, which sort of reinforces the answer is no, there is no lawful order in place that would mandate us to do so. So again, it comes back to really discussing at this level what is best for all of our students. And I think we really need to look at the data, right? And the CDC has said, right, it's shown that transmissions within school settings is typically lower than, and our kids, especially young kids, are not the super spreaders. That's not where it's really occurring. And so if not now, when? I mean, it feels like we're operating out of fear versus based on science at this point. Every adults 16 and older, or adolescents 16, and then adults 18 and older have all had an opportunity to be vaccinated to protect themselves. I do think at this point it should be a choice. I think that the parents are right when they say it is their choice whether to mask their child, not any of ours, especially, I mean, I think we're also setting a dangerous precedent here. If there is no mandate and our own governor in the state has said, feels confident in the resources that, he uses to make decisions to say, look, well, there is no more mandate, but yet we're sitting here saying there still should be. I think that's a little bit dangerous. Are we gonna do that then next for flu and influenza when those rates go through the roof? And those are actually things that affect our kids even more than COVID, according to the data. And even when you look at the extreme, I mean, it just is, the numbers will tell you. So I would even go as far as to say we can take it beyond this, but we're discussing this motion. So I would be in favor of this for sure.
Dr. Newman, and then I will have a couple of comments.
Thank you. I'll just make a couple of comments about masks in general. I was going to do it in my readout, but I'll do it now. I just want to remind everyone that we have worked so hard this year to bring our students back to in-person learning, and there are numerous large districts in our country that aren't back full-time in person, and I'm proud of the work we've done, and I'm proud that we have kids back. Moorhead Public Schools just announced a few hours ago that all their freshmen in public schools are going to be quarantining now and distance learning for the next 10 days due to high cases that they're having. There's one more month of this school year, and what we are doing is working. The guidance we're receiving from the state, from DPI, from local public health is to continue masking. Every major medical association in the country, including the CDC, and my guiding AAP all strongly urge masks in schools. I am a part of school physicians that advise districts nationwide, and everyone is unanimous about that. It is not a debate in the medical community or the public health community. Unmasked student exposures could mean much more education loss due to isolation and quarantining. That's just indoor school plus unvaccinated kids plus unmasked is going to equal virtual learning. So that is what the real question should be. At least until the new variants are better understood in terms and we have more data about long haul syndrome in kids, I don't think you can especially say anymore that kids aren't super spreaders. There is new data coming out saying that kids do spread this virus. We're unsure of what the new variants mean for them. There's new impressive data out from school districts looking at surveillance testing. We've only been doing symptomatic testing. There's a huge new study out of Nebraska saying when you actually do surveillance testing, the numbers are way higher than you once realized. So we owe it to our teachers and our staff and our administration to keep them safe. I know the FEA is in favor of keeping masks. Kids congregate at recess. That's just a fact. I don't know how you could say to 6 feet socially distant. I mean, it's part of their social and mental well-being for them to play. at recess. And so I just, there's no risk to children wearing a mask during physical activity. And I will further say, as a medical professional, I will further say there are very few medical exemptions for wearing a mask. Any child over the age of 2, even those with underlying medical conditions, can safely wear a mask. There are very, very few. So it's just, and employers can legally require masking. That is also a fact.
Okay, so, we're going to have our conversation here now amongst board members regarding this motion. Thank you. So there was a question regarding legality. And as we, board members, received memo today from North Dakota Department, that came through North Dakota Department of Health and North Dakota Department of Public Instruction, that information clearly indicates that although the change that the governor has announced is going to be going into effect, that state and local health communities, in regard to communicable diseases, have authority. The Smart Restart Plan that the board approved, that we owned because we approved it prior to the start of the school year, it gives directive to administration to take guidance from many areas, but also including our local health, public health officials. So I have a couple of issues in terms of why I don't plan to support this tonight. One, what has been stated by Dr. Newman, what I just stated, I believe that if we vote for this, we are moving outside of the Smart Restart Plan that we approved. I also would prefer that this conversation happens as a result of first going to governance, having the discussion at governance, and then having it be put on a board agenda, so that our public, not only the public here tonight, but our public that sees things differently, has an opportunity to know and understand the discussion that's going to be happening at this meeting. If that public chooses to contact us via email or phone or show up, that's up to, their decisions, right? Who shows up. But there has been no public notice that we have had this discussion. So for those reasons, I don't plan to support the motion. I would look for some other dialogue. Robin, and then Jim.
I would say public notice is important, absolutely, but also is for our prep time. I wasn't expecting this motion, so I know there was some new guidance that came out today. I'm not saying I support or don't support it, but I need some time to research in advance too before I can vote with confidence.
Jim.
Well, I'm sure you're all getting the same emails I am, and they're about 50-50. I'd love to find a way to knit these emailers together so they can have a conversation between themselves. But it's for that very reason I'm going to move to table this till our next meeting, so the public does have proper notice. So if there are people that want to advocate one way or the other, they'll have the opportunity to share that under public comment. So I make a motion to table this until our May 11th meeting, if I got the date right.
The next meeting is on May 11th, and are you moving to postpone the motion to a time certain?
Yes.
Is there a second to Jim's motion, which would be to move this discussion to the May 11th meeting?
Second.
Brian seconded it. Okay. Any discussion? Do we have any discussion? Anne Marie, what's the procedure for this?
Yes, you can debate.
Okay. Any discussion? David?
So just explain, so that kills my motion. It's,
No.
but
It-
for tonight, we
It
have no
moves
more
it.
action.
It would move it to the May 11th meeting. Any other discussion? Robin?
I fully appreciate that we are needing to wean ourselves off of this. Had I had time to research, I probably would have voted yes, but I do feel that process is important, and our research and public notice is important.
Jennifer?
I think those are fair comments, and I think that there's still more to come and be discussed, because we still have to, really, we should still also be discussing the mask mandate policy across the board, indoors as well. And so, for that reason, I would like that to be added to the agenda for governance to discuss, considering the April 30th deadline is coming up. So that it's not just limited to this, but I feel like I do have enough information, and I think with the CDC guideline change, you know, even today, recently, in terms of outdoors, I get it that it's, you know, it's not specific to schools, right? But I think we're there. I think, again, the whole point of mask and mitigation strategies was until we could have enough equipment and supplies to support those that did become ill and to slow the spread. And we've certainly done that over the last year. And I think at this point, we are really infringing on people's rights. Now, if we want to talk about a recommendation, okay, we can recommend that would be, and again, then it goes back to choice, because ultimately, it should be a choice, not a mandate at this point. And we are not at, you know, these dangerous levels. And really, I mean, even CDC statistics talk about this specifically. I just think I'm ready to support this motion tonight, so.
Robin?
As you know, I sent out a resolution to all board members and made it pretty public that I intend to ask for this to be brought to the governance committee with, I thought, was strong rationale. So I would support bringing that to the governance committee, and I'll distribute my resolutions at the proper time.
All right, and currently, we are having a discussion regarding the motion to move to table for tonight and move David's motion to the May 11th meeting. I don't see that there are any other hands up, so we will take a vote. Anne Marie?
Benson?
We're voting to table.
You're
not
voting to
the
postpone.
motion.
Yeah, you're voting to
Okay.
postpone the motion until a time certain meeting of
Right.
May 11th.
Thank you, Anne Marie. No.
Gullickson? Yes. Holden?
Yes.
Johnson? Ryan Nelson?
Yes.
Robin Nelson?
Yes.
Newman?
Yes.
Paulson?
No.
President Knutson?
Yes, motion passes. That takes care of our business for this evening. We are moving on to board reports. Committee liaison and correspondence reports, Dr. Newman.
Thank you. Not much. On April 20th, I attended the BU Advisory Board. On April 21st, I did an NDSBA Lunch and Learn on school elections. And then my piece about vaccines for students ran in the newsletters, as you guys saw last week. And now that's sort of morphed into becoming a letter to the editor of sorts. We have about 50+ healthcare providers and public health people signing on to that, and we're going to submit it to newspapers across the state. So that's kind of exciting. And then if anyone's interested, I had emailed you guys that next Thursday, or I guess whenever April 13th is, no, that's not the correct date, May 13th, Paul Carson and myself are presenting a Zoom webinar offered to the state, and we'll be talking about COVID vaccine safety and efficacy and hesitancy, and I in particular will be talking about schools. Thank you.
Seth?
I have nothing to report this evening. Thank you.
Jennifer?
Nothing further.
David?
Well, we've had a negotiations committee since we last met, and I finished up my school liaison visits. We're going to be reporting, I don't think we're going to make a verbal presentation at all, are we? I just want, I've got to tell you about some of the stuff that's going on that we don't see on a day-to-day basis. I have Madison this year. That is, I think honestly today, if I were going to make a decision about where I'd want my kids to go, I'd send them in Madison. That is an incredible school. They have a kindness room. I don't know that I know of another elementary school that has that. They have 5 3D printers that were donated to them by their parent, what do you call the cooperative school, whatever it is, Magnum Trucking. They go down there and they give music concerts for the people at the shop. And I mean, it's just, that is, I have never heard a principal brag about his staff the way that Mr. Olson does. It was the best visit I've ever had. And then I spent I spent over 3 hours at Agassiz. I went through the early childhood special ed. I went through Even Start. I went through adult ed. We are doing some fantastic things here. We've just got to start blowing our own horn a bit more. We've got really, really good things going on in our community, in our schools.
Thank you, David. Jim?
Health Insurance Committee's been pretty busy over the last few months, and it's starting to boil down. We've got an RFP out there. We've boiled it down to 3 finalists. We're going to be hearing from all 3 of them at different meetings this week. Then I think we're getting together the following week to make a determination for the committee, a recommendation that ultimately would, if there's going to be a change, come back to the board for its consideration. Outside of that, planning is meeting sometime Friday morning, once the board meeting's over.
Thank you, Jim. Robin?
Thank you. April, we finally had a Community Development Committee meeting for the city of Fargo. 4 nonprofits did present, and what I learned that day was helping the homeless is so much more than building a building. The services and the management and the wraparounds are really what keep them alive and take care of our citizens. So there was discussion about talking about an ROI and then harm reduction. But I was almost as amazed as David about Madison with how much our community takes care of our homeless society. And it's good work. It's good work. GAC did meet, Governmental Affairs Committee met. We discussed the few remaining bills, how best to compile a summative recap. So we have some feedback on that. We'll give you a more comprehensive one at the next board meeting. There was also a suggestion to have some type of social with our legislators, so there's nothing discussed and just to get to know them. However, we do need to cross-check with the new ethics law. That gets a little bit stickier than you can't be nice just because, is what I'm learning. There is no May meeting because there will be no legislative session. And then we will let you know about the upcoming meetings. Obviously, went to governance meetings as well, and then nothing else that nobody else shared. I did distribute a resolution, and I feel compelled to say why, and then why I put it in writing, because I know this is not orthodox. So thank you for entertaining me. Since the quarantine requirements will expire, I want a board-level decision. I feel that this is up to us to really represent the parents. And if we don't, RUPOC is obligated to follow the guidelines from CDC and what have you. If he doesn't, then we could hold him liable. But I think it needs to be our decision. We need to own it. Secondly, one of the reasons I supported the masking requirements as it is right now is because it did keep our kids out of quarantine. So I'm not double speaking with that. So that has been lifted. Clearly, you'll see that in the resolution. The reason I put it in writing is to explain the timing and the process. It is very much aligned with how these requirements have been peeled back. I wanted to outline the process as well because I wanted to follow our governance policies. And I want our parents to know and have something in writing of when we're going to discuss this, because for us to say we're discussing it at governance and see if it'll come up, they deserve some more assurances than that. And so I know a resolution, I'm not asking for supporting it or what have you, but I thought this was the only way I could do that without blabbering on and on like I am now. So, and the reason I sent it early is because it was being talked about in social media, which was my slip, and I wanted you to hear it from me, not from social media. So There you go. So this resolution will ask the governance committee to discuss, I should probably say it, to consider the expiration of current mask requirement, and therefore be it further resolved that the governance committee shall, according to board policy, determine if and when to do so. Thank you for entertaining me.
And the next governance committee is May 27th. Brian? Nikki?
If I can keep up with all my notes here. On Tuesday, the CEA group met, and we were just reviewing things and kind of setting up plans just for as we move forward now, reviewing our year and getting ideas. And of course, I'll be reaching out to each of you to contribute to that as well. I joined a family engagement team for FPS led by Tamara Uselman, our Director of Equity and Inclusion. We'll meet for 6 weeks, and DPI was asking for people who were interested in improving family engagement in their districts, and Fargo has such an impressive showing that if there's such a thing as too many people, we're close to it. We had so many wonderful people who stepped up and are willing to be engaged. I think we have a really strong group from many different angles. I also attended the FPS Foundation meeting. All is going great there. I always enjoy those meetings. They're fiscally responsible. They're looking at their policies and processes just like we do. So nothing but good there. I attended the NDSBA board meeting, I guess, like several others did. So thank you.
All right, thanks, everyone. The calendar is in front of you. As you know, we have a meeting, a special meeting, 7 a.m. this Friday, April 30th. Our next regular meeting is May 11th at 5:30 p.m. On the calendar, the calendar includes the graduation assignments. So that is based on, there are a couple of you that have graduates, so I'm helping you to be at those ceremonies, also assigning liaisons where you already served or looking at some preferences. So if there are any assignments that don't work for some reason, let me know. David?
I just wondered if Anne Marie's had any success on finding us a location for our picnic.
Not yet. I know where you won't be holding it, but I don't know where you will be holding it. So we're working on that. I hope to have something to you soon. So the rest of you know that the picnic can't be held at Oak Grove Park or Lindenwood due to construction in those parks this summer. They are not renting out the shelters at this time. Due to the size of the group that usually gets together, we're kind of limited on places we can hold it. However, fear not, we will find you a place. So just give us a little time and we will do so.
So we will have a picnic, so we had better start soliciting prizes
Yes.
Absolutely.
or giveaways.
Yes. Jim, you are able to start reminding us on a regular basis, unless you're assigning that responsibility to someone else.
Go get them, because even if we can't find a location, we'll just have more for the following year when we do have a location.
All right, I don't see any other business, and it is 8:27 p.m. Thank you and have a great evening. We're adjourned.